I was scrolling through a forum dedicated to workplace issues last week, mostly just killing time on my lunch break, when I stumbled across a post that stopped me cold. Someone was describing a situation, a coworker turning supportive, then not, and the details were eerily familiar. It wasn't the specific events, not at first, but the feeling of it. The way they described being cornered felt exactly like something I'd lived through a few months ago. Seeing it written out like that made me realize I needed to actually talk about it, to get it out of my head. The chipped formica of the diner booth felt cool under my forearms. Tuesday lunch, same as always, turkey on rye, black coffee, and 10 minutes scrolling through the local woodworking forum. Mostly people showing off dovetail joints and arguing about varnish. It was quiet, a good quiet. I needed that. I'd been reading a thread about a guy dealing with a nightmare client. Demanding, constantly changing the specs, undermining every decision. Sounded familiar, too familiar. The username posting was Kit Kats, and the description of the client's behavior, it was almost word for word the way Yates had been during the Henderson project. Yates. I hadn't thought about Yates in a long time. Not since sponsorship ended. It was a good program, really. It got me back on my feet. Yates was intense but helpful. He'd really pushed me on setting boundaries. Ironically, that's what the guy on the forum was struggling with. I typed a reply, offering some advice about documentation and CYA. I hit send and waited. Usually Kit Kats responded pretty quickly. They'd been active all morning. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, nothing. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they'd stepped away from the computer. Then I refreshed the page. The post was gone. Not deleted, just vanished, like it had never been there. The whole thread was still up, but Kit Kat's initial post and all the replies to it were missing. That's weird. Forum glitches happen, right? I checked my sent messages just to be sure my reply hadn't failed. It was there, sent, but there was no record of the original post, just a blank space where it should have been. I figured maybe the moderators had taken it down for violating some rule. It felt off, though, like someone didn't want anyone to see it. Probably just me being paranoid. I finished my coffee. It tasted like ash. I started taking a different route to work. It was just a few blocks out of the way, but it avoided that stretch of Elm Street where the diner was. It felt stupid, like changing my shoes because of a bad dream, but I couldn't shake it. That missing post, it just sat wrong. I checked the forum again that evening. Still nothing. No archive, no cached versions, nothing. My phone buzzed during my lunch break, a text from an unknown number. It said just a single word, wood. I stared at it for a long time. Wood like the material or like the forum? It had to be a wrong number. Some kind of weird marketing thing, maybe? I deleted it. Then, yesterday, I got to the office and my computer wouldn't connect to the network. IT said it was a server issue, but it took them nearly 4 hours to fix it. 4 hours of just waiting, and while I was waiting, I noticed someone had rearranged the things on my desk. Not a lot, just shifted. My stapler was on the other side of the monitor. A pen I always kept in my left hand was now on the right. I asked Denise if she'd been by. She said no. I tried calling Garrett, my sponsor. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message, rambling a little about feeling off kilter. He usually gets back to me quickly. He didn't. This morning I found a small carved wooden bird on my car's windshield. It was detailed, almost unnervingly so. It reminded me of the little things Yates used to make in his workshop. He was good with his hands, always building things. I thought someone was just messing with me. A prank. A really creepy prank, but a prank nonetheless. Maybe a disgruntled client? I threw the bird away. But now I keep looking over my shoulder, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, someone is paying attention to where I go. I didn't sleep well. Every creak of the apartment building, every car alarm had me bolt upright. I kept seeing that bird. It wasn't just the resemblance to Yates' work. It was the way it felt, like a warning. I called Garrett first thing and left a rambling message about feeling paranoid. He texted back, just take a day, seriously. Easy for him to say, he doesn't have a career hanging by a thread. At work, Denise noticed I was off. She asked if I was sick. I just said I hadn't been sleeping. She gave me this look like she didn't believe me. Then around 11, my computer froze completely. Not a blue screen, just locked. I tried everything. Control, Alt-Delete did nothing. I had to hard reboot. When it came back up, there was a new file on my desktop. Just a text document called Wood. I hesitated. I really did. But I opened it. One word. Just one word. Remember. That's when the panic really set in. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a disgruntled client. It was Yates somehow. He must have found me after all this time. Then, the lights flickered. And the office went silent. Not like a power outage. Everything was still on, but the hum of the servers, the chatter of coworkers gone. I looked up and Mort, from accounting, was staring directly at me. He didn't blink, he didn't move, just stared. It was unsettling, but I figured he was having an episode. Maybe a migraine. I tried to wave him off, but he didn't react. Then the fire alarm went off. Just a short, sharp burst, then stopped. Everyone started filing out, confused. I just walked fast. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I drove straight home, ignoring calls from Garrett and Denise. When I pulled into my parking space, I saw it. Scratched into the paint on my car door were 3 lines, like tally marks, and underneath them, carved into the metal, a tiny, perfect wooden bird. I called the police, of course. I showed them the car. The officer, a young guy, mostly just kept asking if I wanted to press charges for vandalism. Vandalism? Like someone just randomly decided to carve a tiny bird into my door. I told him about the messages on my computer and the stuff at the office. He took notes, but his face said it all. He looked annoyed. He suggested maybe a disgruntled coworker. I didn't even want to think about work. I called in sick and said I had the flu. I needed to get out of the city, just away. I drove to Kay's place out on Long Island. She always had room, and she wouldn't ask questions, just soup and bad movies. Kay wasn't there. She'd left a note saying she was called away on a family emergency. There was no phone number, just gone. It felt wrong, like a pattern. Everything was just slipping through my fingers. I let myself in. The house smelled like cinnamon and old books. Kay's usual. Then I saw it. On her kitchen table, right in the middle of a pile of mail, was another one of those birds. It was identical to the one on my car. Same wood, same painstaking detail. It wasn't a coworker. It wasn't random. It was Yates. He'd found me. But how? I hadn't spoken to him in almost 5 years. Not since I left the program. He must have hired someone, some creep he knew from back then. He was just trying to scare me, to remind me of how low I'd been and how easily I could fall apart. That's what this was, a twisted attempt to, I don't know, reassert control? I started packing, intending to drive to my sister's in Boston. But when I went back to the car, the driver's side mirror was gone. It wasn't broken, it was gone, and taped to where it had been was a single folded piece of paper. The note wasn't a threat, not exactly. It was a date, a time and a place, a diner 20 miles outside of town. We need to talk, it said, just that. No signature, but I knew. It was Yates. I called the police, of course. I showed them the bird, the tally marks, and the note. Officer Garrett, the one who took the report, was polite enough, but you could tell he thought I was losing it. "Stalking is a serious offense, sir," he said, "but we need more than carvings and a vague note." He said it like the carvings disproved the note. I didn't go to the diner. I shouldn't have, but I did. I told myself it was to gather information, to see what he wanted. It was stupid. The diner was almost empty when I got there. He was in a booth in the back, nursing a coffee. He hadn't changed much, still the same unsettlingly calm eyes, the same way he'd always listen without actually hearing you. He didn't apologize. He didn't even acknowledge everything. He just started talking about the program, about how proud he was of my progress, and how he'd always seen potential in me. Then he started talking about my job, about a project I was leading, mentioning details no one outside the company should have known. He was leveraging something, but it wasn't just the addiction. It was everything. He knew things about Flora, about the loan I'd taken out. He'd built this net around me, and I couldn't see how I'd let it happen. I haven't been alone in a parking garage since, not even for a second. I always scanned the cars around me. and check the back seat before I get in. It's automatic now. I was always fearless about those spaces, about being alone in them. Quick in and out. Now I always check. Always. I just did it this morning, walking to the office. Bright sunlight, crowded lot, still checked, still do. It was the kind of all-night diner route where the towns blurred together, mostly truck stops and fields stretching out under these enormous, indifferent skies. I used to drive it a couple times a week, leaving work when everyone else was heading home. The job wasn't great, stocking shelves in a distribution center on the edge of everything, but it paid the bills. It was quiet work, and the drive afterwards was usually the quietest part of my day. The highway was empty, as usual. That stretch between Weston and Lisle was just fields, mostly corn, I think, but it was late in the season, everything was drying out. I'd made that drive 4 times a week for almost 2 years. You get used to the quiet, used to recognizing the same beat-up pickup truck at the grain elevator, and the way the light hit the water tower in Olga. I stopped at the diner again, same as always. I needed coffee. It was almost 2 a.m. The waitress, Irene, was wiping down the counter. She looked like she was about to call it a night. She barely glanced up when I sat down. That music box was still there. I hadn't even really thought about it after last time, but it was just sitting there. Polished wood, a little brass ballerina on top. It looked expensive for that place. Irene slid a mug over. Rough night, Tam? Just the usual, I said, and took a sip. Say, that's a nice little box you got there. She shrugged. Old man Ephraim left it. He said it belonged to his mother. He comes in sometimes, plays a tune. He says it calms his nerves. Ephraim, that was a new name. I pictured some grizzled farmer. It still felt weird, though, like a prop from a different movie. I finished my coffee, paid, and headed back out. 20 miles down the road, just past Selma, I saw him. He was standing by the shoulder, thumb out. A young guy, maybe in his early 30s. He looked normal. Jeans, a dark jacket. I almost kept driving. It was late, and I really just wanted to get home. But it was cold, and I remembered my dad always saying, you should help someone out if you can. So I pulled over. I just kept driving. I told myself it was the shock of seeing him again so quickly. Maybe I'd misremembered the mileage. Maybe I was just tired. Selma to that rest stop couldn't have been more than 15 or 20 miles. He couldn't have walked it. But people hitchhike, right? They get dropped off. They walk stretches to get better pickup spots. It made sense if you thought about it hard enough. I needed coffee. I took the 41 bypass, avoiding the diner. Olga would be there asking questions. I didn't want that. I needed to think. The 41 was mostly orchards, stretching dark and empty on either side. That's when I noticed it, a small wooden music box sitting on the passenger seat. I definitely hadn't put it there. I stopped the truck. Heart hammering, checked the doors, the back. Nothing. It was just there. The same ornate carvings as the one at the diner. Ephraim's music box. It played a tinny, unsettling melody. I remembered the waitress saying Ephraim had left it as a gift, a thank you, but how? I searched the whole cab, under the seats, in the glove compartment. Nothing else was disturbed. I figured maybe, just maybe, I'd picked it up at the diner without realizing I must have. I was half asleep, grabbing my coffee. It was probably a stupid mistake. I tossed it in the back, covered it with my jacket. I didn't want to look at it. I took the 58, heading towards Weston. A longer route, but it would take me around the orchards, put some distance between me and whatever this was. Then I saw him, not at the rest stop this time. He was standing across the highway, near the old grain elevator, just watching. He wasn't thumbing for a ride, just standing, and he was waving. Not a friendly wave, it was slow, deliberate, like he was acknowledging something, like he knew I was trying to avoid him. I didn't stop driving. Not even when I saw the state trooper pull onto the highway behind me. I just kept going. Faster. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. Blue lights, but distant. He wasn't closing the gap quickly. Probably figured I was a tourist speeding. Which, I guess I was. Just not the kind he thought. Then I saw him again, not waving this time. He was leaning into the window of a pickup truck, talking to the driver, pointing, and he turned his head, looked right at me. I swear he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was knowing. I took the next exit, a dirt road leading towards the orchards. Figured I could lose him, or at least put some distance between us. The road was rough, bouncing me around in the seat. I glanced at the passenger seat, the music box, still there. I almost threw it out the window. Almost, it felt wrong. Like destroying it would be a mistake, like he'd want me to. Then the truck. The same pickup, coming fast behind me, headlights blinding in the rear view. He wasn't letting me go, and he wasn't just following anymore. He started gaining. I floored it, the truck right on my tail. The dirt road narrowed, the trees closing in. I slammed on the brakes, swerved hard, and spun the car around, trying to block the road. Stupid, probably. But I panicked. He didn't even slow down. He just drove around me, forcing me halfway into the ditch. The driver was obscured by shadow, but I saw him. The hitchhiker, he was looking directly at me, not angry, not even excited, just assessing. And then he pulled a gun, pointed it right at my head. It wasn't a big, intimidating weapon. Small, silver, almost elegant, like the music box. He didn't say anything, just held it steady. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. Some random guy on a dirt road. But why? What did he want? I realized with a sickening lurch, it wasn't about money. It was about something else, something personal. Something he knew about me. I thought I understood. He'd been watching me, following me, building this up to scare me. To prove a point? I just sat there. Engine off. Heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. He just drove off. Slow, like he was letting me live. Like it was a performance. I didn't call 911 right away. I couldn't. It felt stupid. Some guy threatened me with a gun on a dirt road. Who would believe that? I drove back to the diner. Daylight made everything look different. Smaller, less menacing. Still, I went straight to the sheriff's office in Lyles Creek. A young deputy, Weston, took my statement. He was polite, mostly writing things down, not looking at me. I described the guy, the truck, everything. He asked about motive, and I kept coming back to the feeling that it wasn't random. I told him about the diner, the way the man knew about my mother's garden. We went back to the spot. Weston found tire tracks. Not just the trucks, but mine spinning. He took photos and dusted for prints. Nothing. Clean. Too clean. He did find something else, though. Tucked under a bush, almost hidden, a small silver music box. Identical to the one my grandmother gave me before she died, the one I keep locked in my safe. I nearly choked. Weston looked at me, questioning. I said it must be a coincidence. A really horrible coincidence. Maybe someone makes these things in bulk, but the knot in my stomach tightened. It wasn't about scaring me. Not just scaring me. It was about showing me he could take from me, that he could reach into my life and disrupt it. I thought, maybe it was a former employee, someone I'd fired, someone with a grudge. That had to be it. A disgruntled worker escalating things. I started making a list in my head, going through every person I'd ever let go. But it didn't feel right. None of them had that knowledge, that quiet, unsettling knowing. It's been years. I still drive the long way. Always. Even if it adds 1 hour. I haven't been back to Olson's Orchard since. Not even for the apple cider. It just isn't worth it. Weston was good about it, initially. Frequent patrols, extra checks. But they couldn't find anything. No other incidents. Eventually it faded. It became a cold case, I guess. They figured it was a random attempt, a botched robbery. I tried to convince myself they were right. I sold the business a few years later. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My wife, Irene, thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was, but it wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the feeling that someone knew too much, knew about my grandfather's watch, about Irene's childhood dog, about the time I accidentally set fire to the garage when I was 14 years old. Details no one should have known. I started to think it was Lyle, Irene's brother. He always resented my success. He always hinted at things. He'd been asking questions about the safe, about family heirlooms, just a few weeks before it happened. It made sense. A family dispute gone wrong, a twisted attempt to shake me down. I still check the safe every few months. Not because I think he'd try something, but I don't know. Habit, I suppose. It's just the other day, I was cleaning out the attic. I found an old box of photographs, and nestled in with them, a single dried apple blossom, perfectly preserved. Exactly the kind that grew in Olson's orchard. I hadn't bought apples from there in almost 10 years. I hadn't even thought about Olson's orchard in months. It was just there. The chime of a reversing truck just now, backing up with that high-pitched beep, sent a shiver through me. It sounded exactly like the one she had on her van. It brought it all back, surprisingly vivid. This happened about 5 years ago, when I'd just moved into that little rental house on the edge of town. She was my next-door neighbor, always waving, bringing over plates of cookies, seeming genuinely pleased to have some company. It was a quiet place, and I was looking forward to a quiet life. The mornings were the best, honestly. Just coffee and the quiet. I'd sit at the kitchen table looking out at the overgrown yard, making lists. Things to fix on the house, errands in town, mostly just trying to feel productive. It's funny. I used to thrive on chaos, a city always buzzing, but now it was the opposite. I needed the quiet. Yesterday, though, was off. I was unloading groceries, and Ula, that's the neighbor, the one who brought over the zucchini bread. She was gardening, just weeding her flower beds like she always does, but she stopped, dead stop, and just watched me. Not a friendly wave, not a good morning, just stared. And it wasn't a casual glance, it was focused, like she was cataloging everything I was doing. I waved back, a little awkwardly, and she slowly went back to her weeding. I told myself she probably just had something on her mind. Maybe her grandkids were coming to visit, and she was thinking about flowers. Old people do that, right? It's what they do. But then, later that afternoon, I was taking the trash out, and I noticed her curtains were slightly open. Just a crack, enough to see into the living room, and she was there, sitting in her armchair facing the window again, just watching. It wasn't dark enough for her to be obscured. It wasn't like she was trying to hide. I quickly went back inside and closed my own curtains. Probably just being paranoid. This place is pretty isolated. Maybe she's just lonely and likes to keep an eye on things. It's a small town. People look out for each other. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. But the feeling, it's like a static charge under my skin, like I'm being assessed. I tried calling Yusuf, just to talk and catch up. It went straight to voicemail. That was weird. He always answers, even if he's in the middle of something I texted him too. Nothing. No notification bubble popped up, and there was no scene check mark. Just silence. That's when I noticed the truck. It wasn't there before. A dark green, older model pickup was parked down the street, almost hidden behind Silas's overgrown rhododendrons. It hadn't been there when I took the trash out earlier. I'd specifically looked, just scanning. Now it was there, and the driver wasn't visible. I told myself it was a delivery, or maybe someone visiting Silas, but Silas doesn't get visitors, not anymore. I decided to go to the hardware store. I needed some potting soil anyway. I took the back roads, a longer route, just to avoid passing Ula's. It felt ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling of her watching. As I rounded the corner onto Main Street, I saw the green truck. It was parked across from the hardware store, and the driver was still obscured. I hurried inside, grabbed the soil, and practically sprinted back to the car. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, the truck was behind me. It wasn't tailgating, just there, maintaining a steady distance. I took another turn, a sharp right onto a residential street, then another left. I lost it. I checked again a few minutes later, still there. Maybe it's a coincidence. A really unsettling coincidence. But it's the same truck. It had to be. And it knew which way I was going. It adjusted. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? A truck is following me, and I think my neighbor is involved. It sounded insane. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. This wasn't just loneliness anymore. This was something else, something deliberate. I didn't go home. Not directly. I drove towards Lyle's place, even though he was out of town on a job. It was just further, more open, less trees to hide someone in, and I needed to see if the truck was still there. It was. As soon as I turned onto the county road, I saw it a half-mile back, but definitely there, dark green with the same dent above the rear tire. I sped up, figuring maybe I could lose it on the highway, but it kept pace, like it wasn't even trying. Then just before the old grain elevator, my engine started sputtering. Seriously now, I pulled over and popped the hood. Nothing obvious. It was like someone had messed with the fuel line or something. I didn't know anything about cars. That's when I heard footsteps, not on the road, in the field. The grass was tall, so I couldn't see anything, just the rustling, and it was getting closer. I slammed the hood shut and locked the doors. My phone had no signal, of course. The footsteps stopped right beside the truck. I could feel someone there, breathing, but I couldn't bring myself to look. It felt wrong, like looking would be the worst possible thing. I told myself it was probably just a farmer, checking his fields, but farmers don't sneak around in tall grass. Then a voice, quiet and raspy. "Having trouble, Ray?" It wasn't a question. It was Ula. How? She lived miles away, and she knew my name. I hadn't even told her my name. I fumbled for the keys and started the engine. It turned over, thankfully. I threw it in gear and just drove. Didn't even look back. I figured she'd been driving around, seen me, and figured out I was having car trouble, old ladies and their gossip. But it didn't explain the truck, or the feeling of being watched, even before I saw Ula. I drove straight to Yusuf's. He's the only one around here who knows anything about cars, and he owes me a favor. I didn't call, I just showed up, practically vibrating. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just popped the hood and started poking around. He said it looked like a fuel line had come loose, probably rattled around on those back roads. He fixed it quickly, which was good. I was still seeing that green truck in my head, feeling like someone was watching the back of my neck. Yusuf kept glancing at me while he worked. "You all right, Ray? You look like you've seen a ghost." I just mumbled something about being tired. I didn't want to explain about Ula or the truck. It sounded crazy even to me. After he fixed the car, I thanked him and started to leave. That's when I noticed it. On his workbench, under a pile of rags, was a photograph. It was a picture of my house. Not a great picture taken from the road, but undeniably my house. I froze. I hadn't shown that picture to anyone. "What's that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Yusuf looked surprised. "Oh, that. Lyle asked me to take a picture of it. He said he was doing some kind of survey for the county, property values or something. He wanted to get a good look at the roofline. Lyle, the county assessor. That made sense, sort of. It explained the picture, at least." But then I remembered Lyle had retired last year. And why would he ask Yusuf specifically? He knows I'm pretty handy around the place. He could have just asked me. I drove home, slower this time, checking my mirrors every few seconds. The feeling hadn't gone away. It was worse somehow. Like the watching wasn't just from a distance anymore. Like it was inside with me. It was the small things after that. Not break-ins or notes. Nothing like a movie. Just knowing. Like someone rearranged my mail so the bills were on top, not buried. Or the porch light being on when I swore I'd left it off. I started double-checking everything, obsessively. Locking the shed even though there's nothing worth stealing. Pulling the curtains closed before dusk. I tried to talk to Ray about it, but she just laughed and said I was getting paranoid living out in the sticks. She said, "You're used to peace and quiet, honey. A little creak in the night is going to feel like a monster." Maybe she was right. I'd always prided myself on being self-sufficient, off the grid. Maybe I was just unraveling. Then Denise at the post office started calling me by my grandmother's name. "Morning, Eleanor," she'd say cheerfully. I never told her my grandmother's name. I corrected her, of course, but she just blinked and apologized, saying she must have gotten me mixed up with someone else. It happened again the next week and the week after. I figured it had to be Ula. She runs the local historical society, always digging up old family trees. I thought maybe she'd been sharing information around, trying to be friendly. I avoided her for a while, but she just waved and smiled, like nothing was wrong. The worst part wasn't the things themselves. It was the feeling that someone was cataloging my life, watching me adjust, testing how far they could go. It wasn't about fear, not exactly. It was about exposure, like being a bug pinned under glass. I haven't been back to the farmer's market since. The open space, all those faces, it feels wrong now, too easy, too visible. Even thinking about the smell of apples and hay makes my skin crawl. I get my groceries delivered now, it's just easier.